Greetings, everyone. The purpose for our discussion here today is to convey information from life beyond this planet and this reality to the people inside this world and inside this reality, because it's the reality we occupy here is like a cocoon and just a small droplet in the ocean of what exists in truth of life and what there really is of life, as opposed to what we are taught and what we are conditioned and programmed to know as what is real and what is not real. Everything in our existence is waveform, it is frequency and it is energy. There is nothing else but waveform on all levels of existence of our universe. So therefore, the energy signature of a being does not lie. You can sit there and you can intellectually think, oh, I've got this guy covered, I can tell him that, I could tell her this, but the energy you're actually transmitting out of your chakra systems, out of your energy centres, says something else. And a lot of people have the ability, and more rapidly, it's like a snowball effect on this planet at the moment. The people that are embracing the Christed energy, the golden light, their awareness is expanding, and they are now having the ability to sense another person in their presence and what they feel and what they see and what they think. Because it's not, like I said, the logical thinking that we're grasping here. We're grasping the energy signatures of the operational energy signature of that being. Everyone's different. Everyone has their own little energy signature, and each individual being has a whole harmonic series. It's not just one frequency. It's a whole series of harmonics that comes off each and every one. And so, as a child, I was experiencing that quite dramatically. We have, as the member of the Galactic Federation, we have been negotiating with the governments of this planet for decades, absolute decades. The ideology or the mindset that the governing bodies on this planet have is the obstacle, and that is to continue to govern the people through power, with force, utilising the power in the sense of force, and creating systems where it enslaves the humanity of this planet. These negotiations continue today and will rapidly increase over the next few years, simply because we're bringing incredible proof and evidence to these peoples, where they can no longer deny the facts of what is occurring now and what is about to occur on this planet. This planet is now currently under the jurisdiction of the Cirrus Nation. The treaties that were signed up a while ago were formulated in the early 90s, like the recent run of treaties. The full implementation of all of that, and throughout what's been going on throughout the decades, was implemented at the first equinox of this year, March 21, 2004. The full implementation of this planet, now under the jurisdiction of the Cirrus Nation, is currently operative and is such. It's what is. Can't change it, can't alter it, because you are one planet here. It's a multicultural planet, an absolute multicultural planet, and we have many nations who have agreed to this. All nations basically, but a handful of rebels. So it is not a mystery to anybody else except the general masses on this planet, and maybe their immediate governing bodies. But all the ones that are behind the scenes know exactly what I'm talking about, know exactly what's going on, and are quite pleased to hear some of us, people like myself, coming forward to the general public and beginning to speak about it, because it is one of the most difficult things to do. and they would much rather have someone like me do it than themselves. But that's okay, we will all be pulling together as a team soon, and this information will be coming forward in a big way very soon, simply because we will have no choice. The changes will begin to occur, and we'd rather get this awareness happening before changes occur. It's the not knowing, it's that uncertainty which creates all this fear and all these awful feelings around us. And it's important that we know what's going on. So that's what we're doing. We're feeding you the big picture, so therefore you can start beginning to get a grasp and understand where you fit in the scheme of life and things, so then we can go about releasing that energy of uncertainty out of our being, and we can then operate in an understanding manner, a more peaceful manner. That's what we're doing here. The reason we're calling it confederation, because it's a conglomerate of all the federations in each frequency spectrum. It's been known that the Galactic Confederation is the Council of 12, and has been for some time, but secretly run by the Council of 9. Basically that's what's been going on. Okay? Because the light, with the two expressions of energy, the light was seen to be passive in its own right, and that energy was the one preferred to be utilised for first establishing the Galactic Confederation of Light. Now it's openly run by the Council of 9, by the energy of balance. Okay, so now I'm going through, that was a bit of ancient history on the Confederation. It sits in the star system known as Lyra. Okay. It's pretty much the governing body. It's kind of like the United Nations here on Earth, and it's run in line with the creational hierarchy, with the hierarchical forces of creation. It's not a religious structure. It's just when you understand what is, you work with that, you respect that hierarchical structure and you work with it, and that's all there is to it. It's not about illusion, control, it's none of that. In some of the TV shows like I believe Star Trek, they talked about the universal law of non-interference, and that is a fact, and that's why I'm here talking to you. Our planet is surrounded by ships of the Federation, but we're not showing ourselves because not enough people here want us to come in yet and help. And that is an absolute fact of reality. If we have more people on this planet that want us to come here and help, we will immediately come in. We're ready to go, absolutely ready to go. New technologies, everything, restructure the whole planet. We can do it, we've done it many times over. We've restructured entire star systems in many different dimensional realities. We are proficient at this, and it will be done peacefully, calmly, sanely, with the utmost respect of every culture, and that's what we're waiting for. We're negotiating with the authorities on the planet, and it's important that this message gets out, that we start saying, hey, we're coming to the close of a cycle, something's got to give. At the moment, the authorities don't wish to give, so something else is going to give. And we are a fork in the road. We are at a fork in the road. And as a sitting councillor of the Federation and the Syrian Council, I put this message forward to this planet. And it's important that this message gets out, because if we do not come in and start changing the operational frequency of humanity on this planet, then the planet herself as a living being is going to do it herself. And it's not a doomsday prediction, it's just what is. It's the operational frequency of the planet and the planetary systems, and we really need to understand that. It's not sitting here saying you're all going to die, nothing like that. I don't want to enter that energy, okay? It's not about that. It's just understanding the evolutionary processes that are here today at hand and the ones that are rapidly approaching for all of us. It's important that you do that, because it's not about everyone copying it, okay? It's not about that. No, the governments are just puppets. They're just tools that are used to, what it is a handful of I've had personal interactions with the one that sits at the top of the tree. I'll just refer to him as the beast. That's it. He's really stubborn. He's the one that pulls the strings and the rest of them. It's a couple of rebel establishments from out in the cosmos. This is a universal planet here, and you have in incarnational form here all different races from out there. And each celestial management structure out there has a finger in the pie here. And what's happened is the rebel group has gotten it out of control. 6,000 years ago they came to the planet, and it's been out of control ever since. Okay, they're the residual of the Alpha Draconians. We know them as Draconians, hence we have what's called Draconian laws. Also, some of them are known as reptoids or reptilian beings, and that's why you have the big dragon on the Welsh flag. You kind of think, well, what's that? What is that all about? And you have the Chinese that dance to the dragon. Why? Why do they worship the snake and the dragon? It's in the Egyptian culture, part of my culture. And it's a matter of understanding what that's about. And, you know, we're talking about only a handful. Basically, the vast overwhelming majority of life, of all the serpent races out there are now with the light, are beautiful, wondrous, peaceful beings. Okay? The three queens of Orion are serpent beings, and they are Christed beings. Okay? Each one of them. Glorious beings. Okay? And they are here on the planet. And they'll come forward when the time is right. Everyone's here. Okay? And so, yeah, there is a small handful of people that they only know greed and power. And it's timely. I'll bring this out now. This is the philosophy that they operate under. Okay? It's a very important message we get this out and this understanding gets out. This is their philosophy. Govern the people with authority to establish peace under the rule of law. To conquer the mighty and to show them mercy only once they are conquered. Now that is the philosophy we're talking about. So govern the people to establish peace under the rule of law. So whose laws? What set of laws are we talking about? So what they deem peace is really control. When they have you under their control, under their structure, their rules, their regulations, okay, their operational organisations, that's their version of peace. You are not free. You are nowhere near free. You're not allowed to express yourself. You're enslaved into a system where you must work to survive. And soon we will be out of this survival mode. You will no longer work to have to eat, to have to clothe yourself, to have to put a roof over your head. That will not be a part of our reality in the near future. As a member of the Syrian Council, and I speak with authority here, I will express the energy of authority, and it needs to go out to the authorities of this planet, that will not, and I reiterate, will not be a part of this reality and the way we live and operate in the future. We are no longer slaves to their systems. We will be contributing, nurturing our natural talents to our communities because we will have that want inside of ourselves. We won't live under the energy of competition, of greed, of power, okay, of extreme egos. That will not be part of our existence. That will all be dissolved. That's what all the pain and suffering is that we're going through now, is dissolving that within each and every one of us. All right? And then you will have free time to express yourself and just be you. We will have devices where you can manifest all the clothing and all the food that you like. And you think this is all like Star Trek-y future stuff. Well, we come from the cosmos. We're highly evolved beings. We have incredible technologies, and the whole idea is to understand that the way we live and operate in the future cannot be detrimental to this planet. We can no longer hurt this planet. The way we currently live, what a city is to this planet is what skin cancer is to you as an individual. That is a direct analogy. We can no longer continue to operate in this manner. All the technological devices we will be using, will be either exactly in equilibrium with the harmonics of this planet or will be beneficial to the planet, will add. There will be nothing allowed to operate which will take any longer. That's it. And that's an absolute fact of reality. Whether you wish to come to terms with this or not, that is what's going to happen. And that's what the authorities of this planet need to understand. That it is not us as a power that sits out there that wishes to come in and occupy. It's not about that. We're in line with the creational forces. We are in line with the evolutionary process of the beings on this planet. And now the way we govern is self-responsibility, self-empowerment, self-rule. Everything can be reversed if we are allowed to come in with our technologies and implement them, yes. We can minimise the earth changes that are at hand. We're currently operating in a certain mode and we're heading down a certain path. Okay? Now after our break I will put on and some of people in here are aware of it, the harmonic equation of the grand plan of creation. That is a fact. This is harmonics. This is talking about the cycles of the way the planet revolves around the sun and the sun revolves around the galaxy. You cannot deny that evidence. Okay? Well, you can deny that evidence. We have free will here. Sorry, I'll take that back. But you can live in denial of the truth and the evidence, and then all of a sudden the changes will start to occur, and then it's all going to be a bit too late for a lot of people, isn't it? And that's not what we want to achieve here. We're here saying, hey, we're here, we are ready. Please let us in to start changing things. But to change means they've got to let go of power, you see. And you've got a handful of people that just don't want to let go of that power. If you look at what the Twin Towers did, for example, and how that changed the psyche of the people on this planet so quickly, within an hour, everyone was drenched with fear. Okay? It didn't take long. Now, if we were allowed to have access to that medium, the media, TV for example, one of them, and we were able to come in with, because there's a lot of subliminals that get thrown at you, so we were to come in with the truth and teach the people what is, and educate the people, within 3 months we could have this whole planet turned around. And we were allowed to use our subliminal energies to get people to calm down and be peaceful and, and dampen down their resentment and their anger towards the establishment for lying to them for so long about the truth, okay? Then we would be able to turn things around very rapidly and turn the psyche of the people around very rapidly, given the chance, given the opportunity. We've done this, I could say millions of planets over. We know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. Well, I can only say so much at this time. I'm only having access to a certain amount of information at this time. The moment certain people come forward to me, then I will release more. That's it. That's how it works. That's what I'm waiting for, someone to come and knock on my door and say, let's go. And then we'll get this ball rolling really rapidly. But at this stage, I've been knocking on the doors, honestly. I have. I've personally gone to the Australian Federal Police and I won't name government people here and things like that. And I have been working in this area, but they all think I'm crazy. And I want to know. Is it going to take a tidal wave to hit before they start realising what's going to happen? Because we're all individually, as individuals, we're cleansing ourselves, right, as beings. We need to get rid of that negative energy so we can raise our frequency. You can't take it with you, right? You've got to understand the planet is a being. For her to ascend into this higher way of being, she needs to cleanse herself of her negative energy, and that's the way we operate and live on this planet. Well, we're cancer to her. We're hurting her badly. If you had access to see the magnetic grids of this planet, what shape they're in, she's a very sick girl, okay? She's just about to crumble and hit back very soon. We've only got 8.5 years to go till the cycle closes. So it's all got to be said and done before then, and that's fact. And it's a big call what I'm saying here, because there's a lot of people with prophecies throughout the ages and come out with all that. Well, I've got a harmonic equation to prove what I'm saying. We're not just going to throw theoretical hearsay at people. This is what is, and you can't change it. You cannot change or stop this process. basically there's a good crop circle design, which is you have one ball there and you have a larger one here and another one there. Let me draw that. Okay, what that is saying to you, and this is an absolute now, this is the decipherment of this message, is here we are currently, and this is the higher ascended Lady Gaia on the other side of the sun. She's on the other side. The sun, okay, if you look at all the ancient Egyptian stuff, we've got the sun disk utilised everywhere, okay, because we know, and also the true teachings of Jesus and Buddha, that's why they have the big disc behind them, and in the Hindu religions, okay, it's because that sun is the porthole of the Christ consciousness. Okay, it's the energy of balance that comes in and helps manifest everything into existence, okay? That's where all the energy comes in from. And so what that is saying is, here you have the new Lady Gaia, and here you have the current Lady Gaia, sad and happy. And to get to the new one, you've got to go through the sun. Okay? That's when you ascend. If you look at the Egyptian temples and the South American temples, they all line up with the sun coming up at certain points. Because when you're ready to ascend, you project yourself through the sun. Or what happens is, like an energy comes out, reaches out and grabs you and pulls you through the sun. You go through it. You go into it. Okay? Now to get to this planet, the ascended planet, you've got to go through the sun. Now science will say at the close of certain cycles, the sun throws out a big solar flare, and a big solar flare comes here and fries, you know, the majority of the surface of this planet. That's what science will tell you, limited in the physical paradigm. But when you are an aware being and you are ready to accept and to move into that Christed energy, you will be taken by that energy. You won't be cooked. Okay? You will be transferred through it, out the other side, spat out the other side onto the ascended Gaia. That's what the process is about. Okay? And the people who aren't ready, they'll be cooked. Okay? If they're on that side of this planet at the time when that happens. Yeah. Okay? It's all about everyone's supposed to be in the right place at the right time, and this has nothing to do with fear. I mean, you know, I'm not here making all these predictions of people going, oh my God, this is, you know, all fear-based stuff. Well, it's not. It's when you understand it, you don't get scared because you understand it. There's nothing, once you understand the truth and the processes and the cycles, there's nothing to fear. It's a wondrous. It's like, you could say that March 21 of 2013 is a deadline. That's when the cycle closes. Well, it's not. For me, it's a lifeline. It's a rebirthing. So it's your mindset. It depends how you choose to look at it. Okay, folks? It's really important that you grasp that. It's how you choose to look at it. Whether you want to look at it with fear and negativity, or you choose to look at it with love and positive energies. But basically what is, we're interested in what is. A lot of the religious teachings say that there is a God, isn't it, the superior being. And that is true. We are inside a superior being. And then you've got the New Age movement, which speaks of the source. There's only the source, there is no God. Well, that is true as well. They're both right. In truth, what is you take science, which is a very important part. It's the nuts and bolts way of looking at things in our reality. Really just the nuts and bolts of it. And then you take religion, and then you take the cosmos, because we are in an incredible cosmos. You can't ignore that. You can't leave that out. We're part of it. And you gel all three together, and that's what the truth is. They're all right and they're all wrong in certain areas, okay? Because each one wants to be right and say that the other guy's wrong. That's, you know, the mind games that we play here on the planet. It's the way we're conditioned. It's a competitive type scenario. So you take all three and gel them together, and that's the truth of what is in existence. When we talk about dimensional levels, parallel realities, everything is frequency, everything is waveform. And so, for example, you can't see all the radio waves with your own eyes, can you? And you can't see infrareds and ultraviolets and and those kind of frequencies, because it is beyond the visual spectrum of our eyes. Our eyes can only see a small slither of reality. They're all in the room with us. You can get a radio here and turn it on, you'll pick up the radio waves. So they're here, you can prove that they're here, you just can't see. And that's the same with extraterrestrial life. It's all out there, you just can't see it because it's just beyond the visual spectrum. And not only beyond the visual spectrum, but also beyond the spectrum of our reality, which pulsates at 144,000 cycles per second, which is the speed of light. That's the holograph. We're in a holograph that pulsates at that rate. And these other parallel dimensions and realities that we speak of lie beyond, the vast majority lie beyond that. And so when you have things like science that say our paradigm of reality is really the speed of light and not much beyond that, that's its own entrapment. It's stuck. Can't go beyond those borders. Now, I'll draw, basically the shape of the universe is not a sphere, and it's a little bit expanded. It's kind of like a swollen Smartie is probably the best way to explain it. So we'll take that sort of like swollen Smartie and we'll just pull it out a bit, because all the layers of reality are superimposed upon one another. When we talk about the sixth dimension, you don't leave here to go to somewhere else to get there. It's right here with us in the same room. When we talk about the seventh, eighth or ninth dimension, same goes. It's all here in the room with us. It's just another frequency. Your atoms need to oscillate and spin at a different rate, a different frequency. And people who levitate, for example, how can they do that? There's been many reports of people walking through walls. Gee, how do they do that? And I know that sounds a bit mad for conventional train of thought, but that's all very possible if you know how to control your being, your body, and alter its vibrational state to get your own atoms to spin at a different rate. Therefore you can then gel in and out of this reality. The military works with cloaking devices which makes things invisible, and that's quite well known. It's no mystery. That's how they do it. But they use technology to do that. Okay, so the basic structure is up here, and I'm drawing it visually. So as you know, these are all superimposed upon one another. But this is the best way to present it visually for you. And we know, it being a waveform universe, it's basically you have polarity. So you have, cycles. So you can say that's a positive and negative cycle. That's the way we're used to looking at things. Okay, up here we have the realm outside of polarity, because you've got your two sides of polarity. So here, I suppose we could say that to be negative and that to be positive, if you like. It doesn't matter. We can call that, and you can call that the dark, and you can call that the light. Okay, that's just common terms that we use for two different expressions of energy. Outside of polarity here, it's kind of sitting at the top, is what we call the Christ. Now that's not a religious term. What I'm sharing with you here today, that word is not a religious term. Okay? A religion has utilised that term for its own purposes, but the information and knowledge I'm sharing with you here today sits outside all sciences, all religions, all politics. This is what lies, this is the truth that lies behind all of it. Okay? The word Christ means the golden light. It means Chriso in ancient Greek words. It means the energy, the frequency, which is the frequency of balance between the two. The reason they called people like myself in ancient times Akhenaten, or Jesus, or Buddha, or Muhammad, or Abraham, any of the enlightened beings were called such because we had the golden halo around us. It was glowing. And the people could see that visually with their own eyes because the planet was in a different frequency back then, and they were able to see these things. And therefore, they called these people the golden ones, or the anointed ones. That's what it represents. And that's where the word Christ comes from, Chriso. So it's a bit sad when there's other modes or religions out there that are attacking that word specifically, because their own prophets resonate at that frequency, that light spectrum as well, and that needs to be understood, that does not belong to any particular being. You know, the one we know as Jesus, whose real name is Lord Sananda out in the cosmos, that's a higher aspect of his being, is one, just but one being of the Christed energy, just one. There's many. And all of us people here, our journey here to go into what we call the golden age, is to become one of those beings and to operate under that auspice, under that energy. That's what this is all about. And because the golden light is outside of polarity, it's a balanced state of being. The beings in the Christed energy really understand how to utilise the two powers, the two energies, what we refer to as the dark and the light, to achieve what one needs to achieve in a very balanced and respectful manner to all life. So it's just another word, so we can write that there for the golden light. Okay? Now this universe that I've drawn here is basically what we call God. That's what the religions refer to as a supreme being. Everything that exists has a certain level of consciousness. Right down to this texter has a certain level of consciousness, otherwise it would not exist. There needs to be intent to come in to arrange all what we refer to, I'll get into later, the Platonic solids in the correct manner for this to exist and hold the form. A tree, for example, birds, animals, they all have consciousness. It's all different levels of consciousness. They are all living creatures. This planet is a living being. Therefore our universe is a living being, and that's what we refer to as God, the supreme being, and we are all inside of that and all part of that. Let's say you go to the 12th dimension, for example. The Council of Nine in the 12th dimension are 9 beings which are an extension. You get the main body of Christ, and it's broken itself up into 9 different components. And it's like us as beings have different egos, for example. We have different egos that make up the whole of the expression of the being. So does God. God has broken itself up into different components, and each being from 1 to 9 performs a different function or represents a different function. One might carry wisdom, and the other one might be the expression of learning how to function with authority, and the other one might be the teaching of the sciences. And you know, it's all broken up, and each one has its own responsibility. And this council of 9 exists on every dimensional spectrum, each one. The Council of 9 sits there, and it's flanked either side by 2 other councils, which I will get to in just a moment. And so, for example, here you've got 9 beings. Here you've got another 9 beings. While these ones are here down in this dimensional level, these ones still exist, but these are a lower aspect. This picture here probably describes it pretty well. This is the picture of the I Am presence and brought to us by Saint Germain. And then you have the higher part of your aspect of your being, your God presence. And then you have an intermediate part of your being, and then you have a lower part of your being. It's all one being at the end of the day, but we have different components, and you have this same setup as well individually. Okay? So when I speak of the council existing in every frequency spectrum, yes, they're all one, but they're different components, that's all. It's just broken down. So you've got each being is specialising in each different frequency spectrum, because if you're only one entity, then you can't be here and there at the same time. You've got to break yourself up into 2 or 3 or 4 so you can occupy those different frequencies at the same time and function properly and effectively. Okay? Over here we have, on this, what we used to call in the dark, there was a being that's incorporated this side of polarity called Lucifer. And that's just the Western expression of that name. All cultures, other cultures use different names, so it's not about a religious thing here. I'm just using terms that we are all familiar with. Lucifer is also known as the Great Dark Brotherhood. and is also known as the Council of Seven. I'll put a number there this time. All these names refer to the being you know as Lucifer. So whilst we have in every frequency spectrum the Council of Nine pretty much governing, it's flanked either side by two councils. On one side is the Council of Seven, and on this side of the ledger we have the being you know as Michael, or Archangel Michael, which is also known as the Great White Brotherhood. And also known as the Council of 12. Okay, so in every frequency you have the Council of Nine flanked either side by the Council of Seven and the Council of 12. It's not like here in this reality that we're in on planet Earth we have a set structure and then everything out there is all wishy-washy. It's not the case. It's not like that. There is organisation on every frequency spectrum throughout our creation here, throughout the universe. It needs to be that way. If you look out at Mother Nature, for example, and you think, my goodness, that's really quite chaotic, or the way a river runs down a stream, and it's called the chaos theory, the way the water just swirls everywhere, and you think there's no organisational to it. Well, no, in fact, on a higher level of understanding, that's perfectly organised. And every swirl goes in a certain way because it's supposed to, and every animal behaves in a certain way because that's the way it's been organised for it to do so. And that's fact. There's organisational structure on every level of existence and every frequency spectrum. And these are the beings and the organisers to run that. What you have here is, on two sides of polarity, they're both white light. What you call here the dark side doesn't mean blackness, okay? Lucifer, the name in itself, means the enlightened one, okay, the illuminated one, okay? What that represents is the energy of the light of knowledge. That is the expression of the white light of knowledge. There are two different kinds of white light that we're talking about here, all right? And this is a very, very critical understanding. The reason it's white light is because it's the entire spectrum. It contains all the information in there. All the colours together make up the white light. All right? And for the beings that work with black light, they call it, they say, well, that contains all the spectrum in it. Well, black just doesn't reflect. It eats everything up. So it just doesn't reflect back the colours. That's why it has the whole entire spectrum in there, okay? Okay, now on this side of the ledger we have the energy of white light, which is a lot of the New Age movement refers to, and they call it the light of God and all that sort of stuff, is what's known as the white light of conditional love. So that's really important that we understand this. So here you have the white light of knowledge, and on this side of the spectrum we have the white light of conditional love. Conditions apply with that energy. Okay? They're the ones that say, these guys are evil. To be a Christed being, you're outside of that. When you're a Christed entity, you understand that the beings on this side of the ledger are just as loved and adored and important as all the beings on this side of the ledger. Now what you refer to as the energy of evil is something different. The majority of that energy, the vast majority of that energy exists below the fifth. There's a veil there. Okay? What that is what you term evil. It exists on both sides, and it is the misuse of the white light of knowledge and the misuse of the white light of conditional love. That is what we refer to as evil. Okay? So while you have, and I don't mean to be derogatory by this statement, but I need to make it, what we call the white lighters out there, who sit there blasting away all these entities with all this energy, you've got to understand what you're playing with there. It's no different to getting a gun in this reality and shooting that guy because you reckon he's evil, or taking that person out because you reckon that's a murderer or a rapist or whatever, and indiscriminately just walking around taking these people out. It's really important that this understanding comes forward, that you can't just go blasting all these things, other life forms, with all this energy. It's really important. You're creating a lot of karma for yourself in other realities. Okay? I'm not saying that applies to absolutely everybody, because some are spiritual warriors and they're here to perform that role for certain reasons. But when you come across these books that teach you how to use all this light, it's important that we do it with respect. And we give these energies a chance to, you say to them, you know, please go, I'm going to have to use this energy. And you give them the opportunity. And then you gently start introducing that energy. You don't just go like double-barrel shotgun in one go. It's just not right. You're dealing with life. It's just on another level. Okay? So it's a very important understanding that we have that. That's understanding duality, and understanding when you're above that, both are equal, no matter what. Okay? And that's what it means to be a Christed being, to have that complete understanding and respect it. So George Bush, at the end of the day, I don't mean to pick on him, or let's go back in history, Adolf Hitler, for example, you know, benevolent beings, they play a very, very important role. They created a scenario that we're supposed to learn from. Supposed to learn from. Okay. White light of conditional love. Yeah, conditions apply because it's one side of polarity. You know how before I said it's waveform? Okay, that's Michael and Lucifer. And that's, you know, from here down is this side. Because you can get the universe too, and you could draw it a different way. So you draw it like that, if you wanted to, and draw that like that, and then you have your waveforms up here, and you have the Christed energy up here. Up here, the spectrum's like this. The frequency's really, 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 really fast, right? And as you get further down to here, the waveform is slower and more dense. Okay, so on this side you could say is Lucifer, and you can have Michael up here if you like. All the other way around, doesn't matter. Both spectrums together, unified as one, is what unconditional love is. That's the golden light. Yes. Because we are a fractal of the universe, we are universal embodiment here. So what's important to understand, inside each and every one of you have access, right, and are gaining more and more access all the time. You have within you all the darkness of all the evil that exists in the universe is inside of you, and all the white love exists inside of you as well. Okay? Each and every one of us have that within us. And it's how we choose to use that energy, how we choose to express ourselves with that energy. That's the important thing. And this is what we're learning here. But the grand question is, who are we? Where do we all come from? The answer is quite simple, really, at the end of the day, is you were here in the third dimension, and when you get to the seventh dimension and below, there's physical reality. Beyond the seventh, you start to lose physical form and you go into more energy type of ways of existence. Where we come from is in another dimension, like the fourth or the fifth, on another planet, in another star system, and we've incarnated here, down into planet Earth, into the third dimension here, because what we are trying to do here, or not what we are trying to do, what we are achieving here is a universal embodiment, where any being on any level of reality can incarnate to one place. Any being that feels they have disconnected themselves or detached themselves from God can then incarnate and go through the life's experiences required to learn what it means to be in the image of God. A humane being. A being of compassion, of love, of understanding, of caring, all those qualities that make up and constitute a humane being. And once you do that, you get that understanding, that mindset back. Then you know you are at one with creation and you are no longer separate. You're no longer this small embodiment here existing in this reality and everything is out there. The understanding comes through that you are here, and yes, all you people are out there, but I'm all one with you. I'm a part of you. The same energy that runs through my atoms is the same energy that runs through your atoms. Therefore, we're all connected intimately at the core level. We're all the same, totally equal, all one. And that's what the big myth is. Who are we? Where do we come from? What are we doing here? As long as you have personal identity, you have ego. The moment you make the decision with intent to no longer exist at all, totally not exist at all anymore, you then relinquish yourself back to the source, that core energy that lies behind everything, and you are completely dissolved and you no longer exist at all. You cease to exist. And that your energy will then go back into the source and then something else will form, but you will no longer exist. So it's a big call, it's a big sacrifice to do that. Okay? Very, very few beings do that. You've got to be very evolved to wish to not exist anymore. And we're not talking about dying. When you die, you still exist. I mean, there's just a genetic spacesuit to occupy this reality. So we're talking about your soul no longer existing, beyond that level. Yeah. It's like samsara. If you take a drop of water and you take it and you drop it in the middle of the ocean, that water has lost its individual identity and then becomes part of the vast ocean. And that's the same, you'll become part of the vast ocean of energy. Yeah, you're totally gone on all levels of your existence. You are totally ceased to exist. You will never exist again. The source, the almighty source in there will then use your energy for something else. Okay, so this is the universe. This is what we know as creation. When you read books and it talks about all the dimensional levels, this is what refers to as creation. Okay, now we're going to go to the next step. So this is the basic structure of our universe. Like I said, I've taken it and I've just expanded it out to let you understand that it's categorised now. Just quickly, within each dimensional level, there is an infinite amount of overtones. It's a labyrinth within each one. Okay, we have all these parallel realities really closely aligned with one another. All right? That's why you talk about the upper astral, the lower astral. What we refer to as the fourth dimension, which is this little spectrum here. Okay, we'll refer to that as the fourth. Okay, you have the lower astral, the upper astral. The people like Mr. Edwards, who does his crossing over talks, he talks to people just here, just on the lower bottom of the fourth. Okay, because that's people who have just passed over and they're still very close to this reality and haven't come to terms with actually going beyond that realm yet. They're caught in what's called the lower astral energies. All right, so that's who they're talking to, just outside this reality in these areas here. Creation is big. It is really big. It is really vast. The life that exists beyond this one is enormous. It's more vast than you can really comprehend, and I'm just talking about our universe now. What happens is any being that is beyond your reality, whether you're in the 8th and you're talking to someone in the 9th, for example, they will always present themselves to you with what you're comfortable with. They already know you intimately, okay, because they work with energy. And like your energy signature says so much about you. Okay? And if they give you a name, that's what you're comfortable with, and that's why you've got some books. You can read different books and they all say different things about the same subject. For example, you can get information on the Council of Nine, and you get all different scenarios happening with different authors. A lot of it overlaps and is true, and then you just got little differences. Well, you know, it's their individual perception, and it's how it's been presented to them, and yeah. How we have guides, an example, there's beings, each individual incarnation here on Earth has an entourage around them, so to speak, okay? They monitor you all the time, this entourage. It's a very complicated thing. An incarnation here is not so straightforward and simple. There's a lot of work and preparation that goes into everyone incarnating here in this reality. And so therefore your entourage will present to you information which they know at the time emotionally, mentally, spiritually, where you're at, because if they present you with something that mentally you're not ready with, you're going to freak out. Emotionally you're not ready with, you're going to break down. And that's, yeah, everything gets monitored quite closely and gets presented to you when, you know, at your appropriate level when you're ready. And this is something that I've been working with myself, and, you know, why don't I get this any sooner, and why I'm so frustrated, and, you know, I'm learning patience. Because we'd all like to evolve so quickly, and my goodness, I just went through shingles and all sorts of things because I asked for it. I said I want to metamorphosize quicker, so I did. That's it, yeah. What this visually represents is the omniverse. What I showed you, what we refer to as creation, is our universe. Okay, and I did draw a line of boundary, meaning that's a border, meaning, okay, if that's a fence, then what's on the other side of that fence, okay? Well, this is what lies outside. When you enter the house of Christ and the Christed realm, and you can get your consciousness to shoot all the way to the top outside the spectrum of polarity, and you can get a little bit of a peek outside our universe, this is what you see. This is what's referred to as the omniverse. And what we have here is that grand sphere, or that ball that both science and creation both say everything came out of. The universe we refer to, and we are physically located, right, about here, and we are just one little dot. All those dimensional levels that we referred to before, and we talked about that we know as creation, is just one little speck in the whole grand omniverse. Out here is what we refer to as the source and the grand creation. It's absolutely colossal is the only word I can even come close to. It's enormous, colossal, huge. There just are no words that do it justice. Now I've just put dots there. There's a lot of the New Age movement teaches that there's beyond a certain level of reality there's no form. Okay, the source is just what is, and there's no form and nothing else exists. The energy that runs through all of this is that energy of what is. It's just the source. You can't, it's just raw energy. You can't think about it really, you just can't give it a name, or really, it's just an energy that is. That's totally nameless, genderless, formless, the whole lot. All these other creations are, majority of them are what have happened before, and some are in the making. I've just drawn dots there because there's forms of existence which my brain does not comprehend. This brain I have here is very limited, and I can only present to you dots. You cannot describe what. When you're up in the higher dimensions, you have full understanding of what you're experiencing. When you come back down into this reality and you try to speak in this third dimension with a brain and a mouth and two eyes, which is made for this reality, it's a very difficult thing. The reason there's gaps, these bands spin at different, some spin that way, some spin that way, depending on the expression required by those universes themselves, the other universes. And there's gaps because some are waiting to be formed. Okay? Creation is big. And in there we call that the grand central universe. So life is far greater and far more wondrous than you ever first thought or imagined. It's huge. And we are part of something that is so great. When you look out there and you look at that cosmos at how big it is, and you think that's huge, and you feel there's no end to that, and it just goes on and on and on. And, you know, once you get a peek outside this universe, then you really, wow, puts things into perspective for you. This is the grand myth. We're not going from this reality in a few years, we're going to the golden age. We'll be total gods in creation. We'll just be in kindergarten with all this, okay? Because the House of Christ has quite a big hierarchical structure in it, okay? So we'll be entering at the bottom of that structure basically, and then learning how to utilise the energy of waveform to create. We'll become creators ourselves in this new, which I'll explain later, the kind of devices we'll be using and the way we'll be living. And so once you go through the ranks and you work your way up through all the dimensional levels eventually, okay, we will be then given the opportunity to go outside magenta and begin our own universe and become a god in our own right. And that's what Thoth is already doing. Thoth had to come back inside. The intent of Thoth had to come back from outside in his own universe, because he's the architect of this universe, Lucifer. Thoth is Lucifer, by the way, okay? And he's got his own other universe happening outside, okay, in the same waveform format as this one. And he's come back in here now at this time and is incarnated here on the planet to help through this process. Okay, so eventually we will graduate through all the dimensional levels of the Christ, and we'll come out the top, pop out the top, and we'll have our own universe in creation, and we'll be our own God. That's the grand plan of creation. The whole purpose of this universe and the creation of these lower dimensional levels, we've plunged down into this reality here, and what we say about the grand plan of creation was Lucifer holds the white light of knowledge, and so therefore he's got the knowledge on how to build, how to manifest things into physical being, into reality with that physical knowledge. Like you have a suburb, and then you have people that come in and they build the infrastructure, they build the roads and the houses and the sewage and what have you, and then the people move in and occupy that reality, that realm. It's the same. Lucifer with his or her minions, it's genderless, came down into these lower frequencies, and with the help of what's called the seraphim angels, seraphic angels, which are the serpentine energy of angels, started manifesting life. The first forms of life that was manifested in these lower levels of reality were like insect in nature. They were just mechanical beings that just did. They didn't have much thought. They had no thought basically. They're just totally reactive on pretty much a physical, like a chemical reactive type of instinct. And they evolved over time, and some of the races of the insects became consciously aware, and then they moved on. And then after that they thought, well, we need a new form of life. We need, these guys work in colonies, not much, they're not really able to think for themselves. So what happened was, the next expression of life that was created was the serpent races. And I'm not going to use time frames because time is really of no relevance. I can't give you exact years, it's just not, you don't have numbers big enough. Trillions of years ago, okay, was the insects. Billions of years ago was the serpents. That's where I'll leave it. And the serpents came down, and with that energy of the white light of physical knowledge, they were able to go throughout these lower frequencies of realities, fourth dimension down to the third dimension, and build and create. And they had no one to go up against them, so they totally dominated and ruled, and they become very arrogant and very violent and very evil because they had no point of reference, basically. They were just given free rein, and they were able to do whatever they wanted to do, and that's the way they were. And they know exactly what I'm saying because they're here with me today. And there is, they know this needs to be said. And they were really quite, brutal. And it took a while before God said, right, now I wish to have in this lower void, and that's why it's known as the void, we bring in the energy now of the white light, another set of beings. No one known as the bird tribes. And the serpents started gathering around an area known as Alpha Draconis. And the reason for that is star systems, like planets are beings, you're a being, and planetary bodies are being. Star systems are beings too. Okay, a galaxy is a being. We're all, it's different beings and broken down into different aspects. And so the being that played the role of Alpha Draconis started attracting life. Like you as a being attracts certain cultures of bacteria, certain cultures of viruses upon your own body, and they are all life forms, and you are a multicultural universe unto yourself. So it's just a fractal of the greater. So what I'm explaining is nothing crazy or it's just an understanding of a higher level of understanding there. And so they started gathering because the energies were right in Alpha Draconis for all these beings together. And then once the bird tribes came in, they started gathering around a place called Lyra, which is specifically around Vegan. That's where the Federation started a long time ago with its headquarters there. And after they sort of had differences for a very, very long time, down the track, two other beings came into formation, and they were, and I know the names of these beings, they were two star systems, and one of the beings is called Osiris. Osiris is the entire Orion star league. That's who that is. The whole Orion system is one being known as Osiris, and then another system came into play was Pleiades. I don't know the name of that being as yet. And there was another star, third one that came into being was Sirius, and that is the being we know as Isis, or Isis. Now these beings, because they operate on a higher level, they have the ability to manifest into embodiment here in this plane. Okay? That's why they were around at the early times of Egypt. They played a role as well. So they not only have played a role on a level of being a star system, they have also come here and experienced the reality here as well on an individual basis to gather that experience as well. Isis, we call her, on Sirius we know her as Isis, which means she lives. That's what that represents. And that's the energy of the mother goddess, the feminine aspect of God. She lives, and she is. And that's a very important thing to know because, I'll get to that in a moment. What these serpent races were really all about is their favourite pastime was to genetically create other forms of life, and they did it so they could use these other forms that they would create for their purposes. They were into the energy of control, manipulation, greed, power, ego, on all those sort of attributes, very dominant, aggressive sort of attributes. The bird tribes came into the fray and they hung around the Pleiades star system and they started playing genetically as well, but their angle on creating these genetic forms was slightly different. Their intent was more vanity, beauty, good health, longevity, those sort of attributes. While there were some Pleiadians that created genetic embodiments for slavery purposes, because there was overlapping that occurred, of course. It's not like you draw a line and one is only that way, one is only that way. There is overlapping that occurs. The overwhelming majority did that for those purposes, okay? It was definitely for the beauty and the longevity and all that. And so what God had reached at a certain point in creation, and he had, in Orion, the serpents found themselves being attracted to that star system, because what happens is depending on your molecular structure depends on the rate of the spin of your atom, okay? The energies involved in that star system were just right for the serpent races to create their ultimate genetic embodiment. So the genetic stream that comes out of Orion, the genetic stream in Orion is superior to any other genetic stream in creation for holding the embodiment of the white light of Lucifer, of knowledge. That is the ultimate embodiment for holding that charge of light. Okay? For the bird tribes, they went to the Pleiades. And in there, they found the energies were perfect for creating the physical embodiment which best held and maintained and expressed the charge of the white light of conditional love. There was perfect energies there for creating that embodiment. Okay? And then whilst that was going on, a third nation was coming into the fray, and that was Sirius. And the energies of Sirius are balanced energies. Isis, and the energies of Sirius is pretty much the Christ centre of, it's got a lot of the energy of the Christ in there, but it also holds the energy of the Mother Goddess. So the two main colours of Sirius, as far as spiritual energy go, is gold and silver. Silver is the light of the Mother, and the Christ is the balanced energy, but it has a more masculine flavour to it. But they all serve different purposes. What these, so God had now achieved a certain level of existence. I've created now on one hand the embodiment which best held the charge of the white light of knowledge, and on the other side of the ledger the embodiment which best held the charge of the white light of conditional love. Now it's time to unite these two together, and with the unification of that, bringing these two parties together, because they are two embodiments that were at the opposite ends of the spectrum. Total opposite ends of polarity, extreme ends. So by bringing those two together, it began with a war, which was known as the Orion Wars, and they raged for over 1 million years. It was really horrible, painful time, but it was a process we were required to go through. And Sirius was, because it had such a high energy of balance and the mother energy, it started attracting to it as a star nation highly evolved spiritual beings. Doesn't matter what race they came from, just they were attracted to that place. The energies felt really comfortable for them to be there. A lot of lion beings live in Sirius. There is lion beings out there, yes. What was going on was the two tribes came together and they had the wars, and then the energy of Sirius started attracting these highly spiritually evolved beings. And a lot of birds went there too that were highly evolved, and some serpents too that were evolving spiritually and weren't into that energy of war so much. They understood that it was no good. And what happened was Sirius then started favouring the birds, the conditional love side of life, for a very short time. And Orion went to war, the three serpent queens, under the guidance of the three serpent queens of Orion, went to war against the two bird tribes of Sirius and Pleiades. And it was a very difficult time. You see, the serpents mastered physicality. They knew technology, and they had all the hardware. They were the masters of physicality, and you've got to give them respect where it's due. And so they said to us, it got to the point in the war, they said, you either, to us as Sirius, either surrender or we'll annihilate you. That's where it got to. And the king of Sirius, King An, who was a very spiritual being and always working with, in line with the spiritual hierarchy, was told by the beings in the higher plane that if you surrender, and it will serve the right purpose down the track. And so he did. He had faith in that. He did. He surrendered. And Cirrus now serves in a sort of way under the guidance of Orion in the Federation in kind of a way, certain areas of life. And the wars then subsided because what happened is by doing that they were able to inject into the serpent races, and we're talking about the cream of the crop of the serpent races, the ones that's sort of the top, the pinnacle, okay? Into that was an injection of Christ's energy by doing that. It was a very, you know, sometimes folks, in order to win a war, the whole war, the ultimate war, you've got to lose a battle. That's the idea. Okay? You've got to let go of the ego, and sometimes you've just got to lose a battle in the long run to win the main war. Okay? And that's what Arne did, and injected that energy, and a lot of the lion beings started hanging out because they're very wise beings, and that's why I have a lot of that energy around, and that's why the Sphinx is where it is. That's why there's a lot of establishments here on the planet that use the lion as their emblem. Because the people at the top, right at the very top, they know exactly what I'm saying. There's no mystery. There's no secret. It's just the masses are kept in ignorance, that's all. And so the lion beings are very important beings. They travel throughout our universe and teach great wisdom to a lot of races. They have the ability to know how to harness power. Power comes in many forms, and ego and greed and all those sort of things, and control, and it's important to learn how to harness that power and redirect it and reuse it in the right manner, in an effective. There was a particular being known as the Winged Dragon of Ra. This guy was the leader of the armed forces of Orion, and still is. He's the son of one of the queens of Orion, and was appointed that job, and was really good at it, boy. He then started hanging out, after Cirrus surrendered, started hanging out with lion beings from Cirrus, because he was a power man and they were power beings, and they kind of started hanging out together. And then through a period of time, his relationship with these beings, they taught him great wisdom and said, hey, you know, what do you think it's like to be on the receiving end of your policies, of your decision making? You know, what you term as peace is really control, like I read to you that philosophy before. And it's the same mindset, it's no different, right? And they taught him that you're out there imposing your grand force. We're talking about huge armadas of planetary-sized ships and everything, which just overwhelmed everybody, and saying that they must live under your rules and your regulations, and that's what you deem as peace. You might have peace for a little while, but eventually those people are going to rebel because they can only put up with that suppression for so long. Okay, it's not freedom, it's just control. And he learnt that through them, and he started turning back towards the Creator, and he was, I must say now, he is one of the most important beings in all of creation, and soon on this planet he will be honoured for the being that he is. So will this guy, Lucifer, okay? We've got to get out of this one-eyed perspective that there's only one good side, alright? You can understand that these beings will be honoured for the roles that they've played soon on this planet. Now, he turned around and said to the queens one day, when they wanted him to attack a star nation, he said, no, I'm not going to do it. And they just went crazy, you know, how dare you? Because, you know, they're used to, you know, you do what we'll say. And their philosophies are, their cultural philosophies were, we were here first, we will step on the bird tribes and on these humans, on these beings of light. We were here first, we own this place, we have the right to do whatever we want with them. We will step on them and do whatever we want with them, that is our God-given right. Okay? Or their term of God. Okay? And that's their philosophies that they operate. And we have a leader here on this planet that calls himself Son of Star Wars. Okay? Now you've got to understand that mindset, and that statement was made because you still have a draconian being inside a human embodiment that still lives under that glory days of we have the right to step on anyone that gets in the way of our agendas. And that being has to change his attitude. Okay, it's important that that gets done. That being needs to grow within itself and say, okay, the use of my force is no longer applicable. It's just creating misery. And I've got to stop playing my games of power. It's important that this is understood. Okay, go back to Rapatal, and so he started turning back towards God because he started saying to the serpent queens, I'm not going to do it. And they went crazy, and then they turned around to their lineage back to Alpha Draconis, which was the headquarters at the time, running the serpent queens of Orion, like their big daddy, so to speak. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it, even to those guys. And they said, well, what's going on here? And he started changing, and he started reconnecting with God and turning towards the light. And that's why they call him the winged dragon of Ra, because Ra is the sun disk, is the Christ consciousness, and he is a dragon who is of the Christ. That's what that name refers to, the winged dragon of the Christ, of Ra. Ra is just another name for Christ. Okay? Another name for that ball, the golden light. He then began coming here and changing the way things were done here on the planet. And once that started occurring, the energy shifted in Orion and Pleiades and Sirius. It shifted dramatically. And what happened was then we were given the go-ahead by the spiritual hierarchy to create a third physical embodiment for this grand plan of creation. And that was the one that was going to combine the energies of the serpent tribes and the bird tribes to bring it together into a universal embodiment. And we did that and created what's called the feathered serpents. And there was a few of them that were created, and the expression of the beings pleased the spiritual hierarchy. The way they went about expressing themselves was far more balanced. Not too much greed, not too much power. Not perfect, right? It worked really well. So as soon as the expression of these beings was known, it worked really well, and straight away we were told to come here to this planet in this solar system because the energies were right here to start creating a universal embodiment. And that is the grand plan of creation. First of all that side, then that one came in, then bringing them. We are on planet Earth, and we're about to go here in the third, and we're going up to what's called the fifth. We'll be in very much a lot of the golden light, not totally, but in a great deal of it. And once we jump here into a holograph within the fifth, we're not just going to be a part of the fifth, okay? We're not going to be totally with the fifth. We're going to be in a holographic bubble within the fifth dimension, okay? Because don't forget there's a whole lot of different harmonic series within that, okay? But the project we're doing here needs those frequencies. It's the right frequencies, the right dimension for this project. Once we go into there and we start living, the energy is going to reverberate right throughout the whole of creation, like that. By us going up there into this golden age very soon, right, the energy will reverberate out throughout the whole of creation and start shifting things. Because this is new, this is brand new what we're doing here. What you're a part of here is very, very important in all of creation. This is no small deal that we're here. You're revered out there. And all these other frequencies and all those other star systems out there, you are absolutely revered. It's a very difficult thing to come here into this reality and do what we're doing. Very much honoured and very much revered. Okay? So you're very important beings, and this is the process at hand. It will totally change, it will have repercussions throughout the whole universe and all levels of existence. All the experiences, every emotion you feel and all the experiences you feel goes back to your home system, and that information gets transferred to all the people, okay, that have access to that, your experience here. You're not just here alone and that's it. You're connected still to your home state, your home star nation, and your home species. Okay, the way we live here is through our environment which we live in, we are disconnected from that. Someone is imposing you into a cocoon of reality. Okay, you're held prisoner here. That's what we're trying to tell you. It's when you get your awareness and you awaken, you start to see through the veil of this illusion that you're living here in this reality. Now, Ra comes to this planet, and because he changed his ways, he was given a bit of he was rewarded in a sense. And everything goes in cycles, so he was allowed to come here and build a monument which marked the cycle that marks the beginning of the cycle to end all cycles. So we have a symbol that is known in every culture as the circle and the cross. That is well known in every culture. Okay, and this also can be used to say, well, here's a processional cycle. The true processional cycle, everyone says it's about 26,000 years. It's not 26,000, it's actually 24,832 years. But, and I'm saying a but, there's an acceleration factor involved with that. And that acceleration is plus 6.18%, which just happens to be the golden ratio. Now, if we mark this as the beginning of the cycle here, this is when the Sphinx was built, okay? The Sphinx was built 24,832 years ago by the being called Ra-Pa'atal, who is the leader of the armed forces of Orion. He's also known as the Lion King out there, because he's also taken on genetics of the lions as well. He did that for himself. And he's also known as the winged dragon of Ra. Now he built that with Thoth. Together they built that. Now the reason they built it in the shape of the lion was to honour the lion beings for the help that they helped him turn around and help him turn his race of peoples around out of that energy of war to save his peoples and return them back to the energy of God. And it's a monument that represents peace between the serpent tribes and the bird tribes. That's what it represents. It's a monument of peace throughout the whole universe. Very, very important monument. And what it does is it locks in where it sits and the time frame it was built. It actually locks in like a key into the magnetic grid of this planet and pumps harmonics out into the magnetic grids of the two magnetic grids of this planet, the matter grid and the antimatter grid. And how were they built? We can tell you how they were built. Well, it's simple. They just used sound, frequency. By pumping frequency into the rocks, you change the rate of the spin of those atoms. Therefore, you change their molecular structure. Therefore, you can actually get them to levitate. And this is no mystery. There's Buddhist monks with their big horns that can sit there and they can pick up a big boulder and make it float in the air for you. You can go there and ask them to do it for you. Okay? This is no mystery. Okay? Everything is sound, everything is frequency. All of Nikola Tesla's research was about frequency. That's why all got shelved by the Morgans, because they knew what potential it had, okay? So it's just frequency. They levitate and you can push it with your little pinky after that. Just walk it into position. Then once you get the rock into position, then you blast it with a frequency again to return it to its actual molecular structure. And because they're just slightly pliable as well, they just dropped into position. And that's why you can't get a piece of paper between the rocks either, because once they dropped, as they were dropping, they were also moulding into position. Just ever so slightly. And that's how it works. It's very simple. Built them very, very fast. In no time at all. And no, Khufu did not build the Great Pyramid. It's like who taught the university professors what is real and what is not real? Where did they get their information from? And the people that taught them, where did they get the knowledge from? And when something gets discovered, who gets to say that that's officially true or not? It's a group called the peer review. You've got a handful of people that tell the rest of this world what is real and what is not real. Oh, what kind of power is that? Talk about control. Okay? And the evidence is overwhelming. It's all around everybody. If you want to see if extraterrestrial life exists, it's all around you. Open your eyes. It's written in every culture. Every religion has it written in there. Even the Christian religion. If you know what the Star of David is, it's a Merkaba vehicle. It's a light vehicle. So now we're getting to 24,832 years is a precessional cycle. That also, when we talk about harmonics, we're talking about things having a relationship with one another. So we're breaking out of the mentality of ones and zeros. We're not computers, okay? We're not machines. We are biological entities. And so therefore, you've been conditioned by our society to think of ones and zeros. It either is or it isn't. Okay, when we're talking harmonics, it's not about that. There's give and take on either side. Like when you get to a radio station, you can come off that dial a little bit. You're changing frequency by a fair bit, but you're still picking up the radio station, aren't you? Okay? So it's not like your digital phone compared to your old analog phones. While the signal was weak, you could still manage to have a conversation. Now it just drops out. It's not there. It either is or it isn't. So more and more you're being, compressed into this way of thinking like a machine. Okay? So this harmonic equation has that relationship involved in it. Correlation is the key word. It's also a seated fractal. You can express wisdom in a mathematical expression called recursion. It's a recursive equation. So you've got your 2 and you go 2 times 2 equals 4. You start off with your 2. Okay, and then you come down, you go 2 times 4 equals 8. And then 4 times 8 equals 32. So you can see it's gaining upon itself. It's a compounding equation. Alright? It's like this. You have an experience in life. And you take this experience and you go, okay, I've just had that kind of experience. And then you move on in life. And then you're standing here. Well, wisdom is for you to come now into this next experience, but also to bring your last experience with you into this experience as well. Okay? And then you have another experience, and the way you perceive it this time is based on what you're going through now, but what you take into consideration what you experienced before as well. It's learning from your experiences, right? It's wisdom. And then you have that, and then you move on again to the next experience. And now you have 2 others that you've had. So you keep growing as you're going along. It's called wisdom. All right? That's the mathematical expression of wisdom, is a recursive equation. So that's one way to understand that this precessional cycle, this cycle to end all cycles, has harmonically wisdom built into it. For us as universal beings to incarnate on this planet and to gather the wisdom necessary for our souls. The energy is there for us to use that. The harmonics are there. Also, you can take the numbers and you go 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 3 plus 2 equals 19. 19 is a very important number. It's actually a mathematical expression of the goddess feminine energy. Okay, so the energies that we're moving into now is more feminine nurturing energies of creation. We're getting away from that male-dominated bastion type of energy of power, greed, ego, violence, control, all that sort of stuff. It's important that we all understand nurturing energies. It's due. It's well overdue. Okay, if we take this equation another step, we've gone 4 times 8 equals 32. If we go 8 times 32, all right, equals 256. Now the square root of 256 equals 16. That again is what's called a golden ratio number, golden mean. Now I apologise, I can't go through explaining what that is. There just isn't the time. I urge everybody to look into the golden ratio and the golden mean. When you understand what that is, you'll be absolutely amazed. It is the harmonics of everything that exists in life. The shape of leaves, your body, the ratios of your hands to the distance between your eyes, everything's involved in what this is called the golden ratio. So it was imperative that it was involved with this equation. Also, 256 is a very important number because we have two magnetic grids on this planet, okay? And this is where physics and the flower of life gels together, okay? Everything that I'm explaining to you, everything that you read about in these spiritual books, the ascension process can be expressed through physics, okay? What they say is when matter and antimatter collides, they annihilate themselves, and all that's left is like a couple of showers of light, or just photon streams, okay? What really happens is, here you have your matter grid and your antimatter grid. Okay, there's two magnetic grids going around the planet, because it's balanced polarity, right? You need to have that. And when they collide, when you can bring the two together, you create what's called the vesica Pisces. So in here, you have the Christed energy, you have the positive and the negative, and here you have the golden light for Christ. Okay? Once you have that golden energy and you merge the two together, that then gives you the ability, right, to move in and out of realities. So what happens is when matter and antimatter collide, they merge the positive and negative side of polarity and they disappear into another dimension. That's what happens. And that's why they say they take. And that ancient symbol, which is in just about every culture, or ancient culture in the world, this is it. This is explaining that. And that's the ascension process. We will take these two grids within ourselves, we will create the vesica Pisces, we'll bring the two together, our matter and antimatter magnetic grids within our body embodiments, and we'll be able to merge the two and go off into another reality. Okay? Because you have your waves. Okay? And your first cycle is your positive cycle, and your second cycle is the negative cycle. Okay? In your sine waves, polarity. Okay? So we're compressing the two together. You bring the two together and then off you go. Disappear into another reality. That's basically what happens when matter and antimatter collide. Alright, so that matter grid and antimatter grid have a harmonic resonance. The difference between the two grids, right, the difference between them just happens to be 2, 5, 4, 5 harmonic. So this number correlates with that harmonic. It sits in between the two grids. It's kind of like a crossed harmonic, a golden harmonic. Measured at 1 geodetic inch. Okay? Because we're talking harmonics, so it's minutes of arcs and that energy. We're not interested in square centimetres. Okay? We're doing another type of measurement here. So that shows how important this equation is. It just plugs in everywhere. It's plugged into the grid. It's showing you the feminine expression of the goddess energy, which is now coming through, and we have the recursive factor here. So the next step in the equation is going 32 times 256, and that equals 8192. That's an incredibly important number. Okay, if you put a line down the middle there and you put a couple of little pluses here, you have 911. So it gives you your 911 gateway. That's what 9 represents is the ending of the cycle. Okay, going through the two pillars of polarity. That's what it represents. And that's why those buildings were hit on that day. And that's why the emergency number for a certain country is that number. Because the establishment that controls things here wants as much fear around those numbers as possible in the psyche of the people. Okay, because they're such important numbers. They just want fear around those numbers. And that's why Spain was hit exactly 911 days after the two buildings were hit. Okay, and for those in the mystery, exactly the same people that control the terrorists are exactly the same people behind the so-called coalition of the willing. There is no different, and I stand by this, and this is going on tape. This number also happens to be the harmonic of the acceleration of the speed of light on the planet, because light is not, it's not like a machine, it's not constant. It's a different speed at the equator than what it is at the poles. And so while we have here, I'll draw the equator, 0 degrees. Okay. That is the number of the harmonic at 60 degrees latitude on our planet. Is that number correlates, and it's 81918 is the harmonic involved there. Okay, very, very important number. And when you look at that numerically, also, 9 is the ending of the cycle between the two pillars of polarity, flanked either side by the infinite wisdom of God. Okay? Very, very powerful number, that one. And you think, well, gee, that's really amazing. 60 degrees, that kind of sounds familiar. 60 degrees, 666. What's that number? That sounds familiar, doesn't it? 666. Gee, it's supposed to be an evil number, the number of the beast. No, they don't want you to go to there. That's why they say it's evil. Okay? Just about everything they say it's evil is because they don't want you to touch it. They don't want you to know about your serpent origins and the serpents and the roles they play. And they don't want you to know about the number 666. It is 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. It is the holy triangle of light. And we can do that for our beloved Freemason friends. No, they're good guys too. My father's a Freemason. It's all right. Okay? Just wish they'd listen to me a bit more. Okay? That's all right. We've got to love all the guys. You know, they've done a lot of good work. Look, there's only a tiny minuscule of people in that organisation that are evil. The rest of them are just beautiful beings doing a lot for the community. So it's not about judging, really. Okay, go back to Rapatal, and so he started turning back towards God because he started saying to the serpent queen, so I'm not going to do it. And they went crazy, and then they turned around to their lineage back to Alpha Draconis, which was the headquarters at the time, running the serpent queens of Orion, like their big daddy, so to speak. And he said, no, I'm not going to do it, even to those guys. And they said, well, what's going on here? And he started changing, and he started reconnecting with God and turning towards the light. And that's why they call him the winged dragon of Ra, because Ra is the sun disk, is the Christ consciousness, and he is a dragon who is of the Christ. That's what that name refers to, the winged dragon of the Christ, of Ra. Ra is just another name for Christ. Okay? Another name for that ball, the golden light. He then began coming here and changing the way things were done here on the planet. And once that started occurring, the energy shifted in Orion and Pleiades and Sirius. It shifted dramatically. And what happened was then we were given the go-ahead by the spiritual hierarchy to create a third physical embodiment for this grand plan of creation. And that was the one that was going to combine the energies of the serpent tribes and the bird tribes to bring it together into a universal embodiment. And we did that and created what's called the feathered serpents. And there was a few of them that were created, and the expression of the beings pleased the spiritual hierarchy. The way they went about expressing themselves was far more balanced. Not too much greed, not too much power. Not perfect, right? It worked really well. So as soon as the expression of these beings was known, it worked really well, and straight away we were told to come here to this planet in this solar system, because the energies were right here, to start creating a universal embodiment. And that is the grand plan of creation. First of all that side, then that one came in, then bringing them together. Alright, so basically you now have 8192 or 81918 on each corner. And that is the unification, the Holy Trinity, of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit in religious terms. That is the unification of all three, bringing all three in at the same time to combine and become one. The unification of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And again, that is westernised terms. Every culture can look at this and have their own words and their own terminology that they use for those same names. Okay, it's not about a one-eyed perspective. So now we take that into consideration. You think, okay, so you did mention before about the planetary light body, the planetary light vehicle being activated. So we go back to the global picture, and you have 0 degrees, 0 degrees, 30. Okay, so we set at 60 degrees, that's where the harmonic, so that forms the base now for an amazing thing. Okay. Alright, because it just so happens to form the base for the triangle. And there you have it. Okay. That harmonic will activate the planetary light body, the planetary light vehicle, also known as the Merkaba vehicle. Please don't think of this as a religious symbol or the symbol of a nation. Okay, like I said, we're coming from beyond and above all that stuff. Okay, this is the energy of what is. You go, okay, so you've given us 24,832 years, but, you know, time is measured on a linear fashion, and you could say it could be anywhere along that timeline, okay? So what is it about a specific date? And you think, okay, we'll move to that now, the actual date. 21st March 2013. That is when the cycle closes on the day, and that is the day that harmonic kicks in a gear and activates the planetary light body. And when you write this date, rewrite it, you go 2103, as we write it here in Australia, and you go 2013. And that's interesting. You look at the 1 representing the whole, the oneness, has now moved across, and it's gone away from polarity, okay, and has moved into the Trinity. It's shifted across. Alrighty. And you think, well, yeah, but that's still a bit how you're going. It's not really quite rock solid. We're dealing with harmonics, and we're dealing with symbolism. Pictures go beyond, they penetrate the veil of this reality, they go into the soul of the being, okay? Every picture tells 1,000 words. It's very important that pictures and pictorial diagrams are used and monuments, very powerfully symbolic because there's mathematical measurements in them and what have you, sacred geometry, and they tell so much, they tell enormous stories. Okay? But when you look at it also, you can go 2 plus 1, 2 plus 1. So what that gives us now is 4 groups of 3. Okay? It's important to remember that. We now have 4 groups of 3. 4 groups of 3. So what's the number 4 so important? What we have, everything that makes up this reality that we exist in, and in other realities up until, like I said, the veil of the 7th dimension, where physicality loses itself and you become energy flows, okay, requires the culmination of what we call the 5 platonic solids. Okay? Depending on how you arrange your energy, your gases, your liquids and your masses, determines the outcome of what gets manifested into physical reality. Okay, so what we have is what's known as the 5 platonic solids, and we have, the first one we say is the tetrahedron, okay, which is the energy, and the second one we have is the octahedron, okay, which is the gases, and we have the icosahedron, which is the liquid form, and we have the hexahedron, which is a cube, which represents the masses, the solids, and then we have the dodecahedron, which represents the intent, or the spirit. Okay? And I recommend everybody to look this up, because I can't go spending the time, that's a whole lesson of hours in itself, is to please look that up, because it's very important that you look at the golden ratio and you look at the Platonic solids. It'll give you a great understanding of how our reality is put together and the purpose of things existing, like a tree. You know, there's great consciousness that goes behind a tree and its existence and why it looks the way it does and expresses itself the way it does. And then you understand why you do it. It's really important. So we had the 4, and you say, but you wrote 5 down, okay? So we'll go back to the circle and the cross again. Okay, and here we can go the tetra, the octal, the hexa, and the icosa can go there. Okay? And you go, well, where does the dodeca sit? Well, that sits right in the middle. The intersection of the cross is what represents the eternal ether. Okay? The eternal flame. So that is the spirit. Or, as I said, dodeca, or the intent. Sits there. Okay? And so the 4 groups of 3 are the 3. So the energy, 81918. Okay? So you have the energy, the gases, the liquids, and the solids, everything that manifests this reality into being, governed by the eternal ether, okay, the eternal spirit of God. On that day of March 21, 2013, will be unified into the golden light, and this reality, this planet and everything on it and in it, will lift up into that 5th dimensional bubble holograph frequency and exist in the golden age, what we call the golden age that is coming. The Sphinx, how it ties in with the precession of the equinox, it's a marker to mark the beginning of the cycle. What's happening now, the Sphinx will come back into action. Now they talk about the capstone and the pyramid and the capstone that's missing. Okay, that's what that diagram is about. That's the capstone. Okay, and the beings from Sirius. That's who we are. We are the ancient Egyptian culture who came here and started things quite early in the piece. We are now going to come back and reactivate these monuments and bring them back into their glory. You will see them in their beautiful state, the original state that they were in. We've been negotiating with the governments here for decades. Really. The ancient cultures have known about extraterrestrial life. It's written in every culture. The extraterrestrial life has been known throughout the ages from time immemorial. It has never not been a part of reality here until a group comes here and decides to enslave the people of this planet in imposed ignorance. That's why you have movies like Independence Day. So if our big spacecraft are seen in the skies, everyone's going to get scared. They're brainwashing the people. Okay? It's very important to understand the brainwashing that's going on. Now, Stargate, for example. Yeah, that's just amazing, you know. Why is it all the ancient Egyptians, the Sirens, are the evil beings, and the American military are the good guys again? And they can go out with their guns to all these planets throughout the cosmos, righting all the wrongs of the cosmos. I mean, that's just crazy, you know? As if you turn up to another planet with a gun that fires bullets, for example. We're coming anyway, because there's a lot of beings that need to get picked up. If you have a light being and they're standing in front of the wave, a tidal wave, we'll quickly zap them up before they know it. We can get from here to Sirius in 2 to 3 minutes, right? We operate, our ships are Merkaba vehicles. Okay, they're not made from nuts and bolts and rivets and all that. They're light vehicles. They're sentient beings, okay? Okay, that's what our ships are. Okay, when you hop on board our ships, you are connected as one with that being, with that ship. Okay? You know each other intimately. And it zaps from here to there at the speed of thought. Okay? Instantly. So any fear that anybody has in here should be eradicated. Okay? Because if you are a light being and you're supposed to be in the golden age, you will be picked up and everything will be fine. And you'll be picked up by your own people. It won't be foreigners. You won't get on there and it'll be a bunch of aliens. It'll be your extraterrestrial race, your people. We have all the races out there sitting and waiting. If you were able to drop the veil and see the amount of ships that are out there, you would freak out, completely freak out. So get the fear out of your system. You will be picked up. It's free will. If a ship turns up, because we're conditioned, like it's one thing to say it intellectually, but when you stand there and there's a ship hovering above you, that's a different story altogether. You know, then that programming of fear comes out. So make sure that you get that out of your system and think, if a ship turns up, I'm not going to be scared. Because it's one thing to have an intellectual concept of the experience, it's another thing to live it. Okay? You've been brought up in a society that's programmed you with fear on that subject. And it's very important you get over it. Very important. I can't tell anybody what to do. I just feel it's important that you all follow in here to follow what you feel you need to do. Okay, we all have natural talents that we're good at. We all have reasons for incarnating. I think it's important you get in touch with that and follow that. Like I'm saying to you, to understand who I am as a being standing up here before you, sharing all this with you, I ask for you to go in here, into the heart centre, and understand who I am, whether I'm real, whether I'm the real deal here. It's important that you do that. Don't take my word for gospel. Don't take anybody's word for gospel. From now on, get into the practice of discerning with your heart chakra. Okay, that's where truth is. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you.